This is the story of Richard Henyard, an 18-year-old who killed and murdered a mother and her two kids. Richard Henyard was born on the 26th day of June 1974. Growing up, he grew up in a very destabilized and bad home. His mother was a junkie who was a chronic alcoholic and substance abuser. And this so much affected Richard, so he moved from house to house due to the fact that his mother could not take care of him. He was always bullied by his peers who told him that his mom was always sleeping around with men and women. On the other hand, Richard didn't have a father figure in his life. His dad, who was a Navy officer, was always busy. He promised Richard that he was going to come back and take him to live with him, but he never acted on that promise. Instead, he left, and that really affected Richard, and Richard grew up to be a child without a father or a father figure in his life. Witnesses say that even though Richard was 18, he still acted like a 13-year-old. During this period, Richard was in desperate need of two things. He needed money and he needed a car. He needed money because he was broke, and he needed a car so that he could travel all the way to Orlando to go see his father. Richard didn't have a job, so the only way for him to get what he wanted was to take it forcefully from someone. That was when he decided that he was going to kill someone, take their car and drive away with it. Now, for Richard to pull off this crime, he needed help. So he calls his friend Alfonso, who was 14-year-old at that time, to help him with it. And Alfonso actually agrees to help him with this. A few days before committing the crime, Richard visits the house of a family friend, and it was there that he steals a gun from the family friend, which he intends to use and kill his victim. On getting back home, he shows all his friends and peers the gun. His plan was simple: steal a car, kill the owner of the car, and drive away with the car. On the 30th day of January 1993, 18-year-old Richard and 14-year-old Alfonso set out to look for their victim. They didn't have anyone in mind. All they needed was someone that was vulnerable and easy to intimidate. They went to a local supermarket, stalking and waiting for an easy target, and that was when they met her. Meet Dorothy, a mom of two amazing kids, who will eventually become the unfortunate victim of these two idiots. She became their target by coincidence. She was a mom who was doing grocery shopping alone with her two kids, who were aged 7 and 3. And to Alfonso and Richard, she was the perfect target, someone who would not be able to fight back and would be easily intimidated. As she unlocked her car door and loaded her groceries and two children into the car, the two teenagers ambushed her and took control of the vehicle at gunpoint. This was when things took a darker turn. Instead of just taking the car and leaving Dorothy and her two children alone, Richard decided to do something even more darker. He took the car to an isolated place along with Dorothy and her two kids inside the car. He forcefully takes Dorothy out of the car and sexually assaults her. After the assault, Richard Henyard knew that Dorothy was going to identify him easily, so he brings out his gun and shoots Dorothy 4 good times, and one of those times was on the head. After shooting Dorothy 4 good times and thinking that Dorothy was dead, Richard leaves with Dorothy's car and her two kids inside it, 7-year-old Jamila and 3-year-old Jasmine. As the car was moving again, the two children were crying hysterically because they just lost their mother. And this pisses Richard off because he was seeing it as a nuisance. So he takes the car to another isolated area, and that was where he executed these two innocent angels. Few hours after she was shot and after Richard left, Dorothy regains consciousness. Turns out Richard didn't do quite a good job in killing her. So she crossed onto the road, and that was where she got help. Now the next day, on the 31st day of January, Richard decides to turn himself in, not as a murderer or a perpetrator, but instead as a witness who saw when the killing happened. Now I see why they say he acts like a 13-year-old, because for some reason he felt like going to the police and telling the police that he was an eyewitness will save him. His plan was basically to go and implicate Alfonso, who was his partner in crime, so that Alfonso would take the fall for everything. So he goes to the police station claiming to be a witness who saw when the shooting happened. But then when investigators looked at him, they saw bloodstains all over him. It was on his socks, it was on his jacket, and when forensic tests were carried out in respect to those bloodstains, they were found to belong to Dorothy, who was shot. Faced with enough evidence, Henyard Richard admits to shooting Dorothy, though he claims he was not the one that shot the two children. Instead, it was Alfonso. In the month of June 1994, a jury in Lake County, Florida, convicted Richard Henyard on the following grounds: 2 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of attempted first-degree murder, 1 count of sexual battery with firearm, 3 counts of armed kidnapping, and 1 count of armed robbery. At the end of the day, he was unanimously sentenced to death by the jury, and Alfonso, who was 14-year-old at that time, was sentenced to life imprisonment because he was incapable of receiving the death penalty because of his age. So do you think Richard deserved the death penalty, or was the jury too harsh with their judgment? Subscribe to my YouTube channel and you can DM me any story request that you want. Bye!